Hello and welcome back to the Single Malt Frontier, where we explore the edge of innovation in American single malt whiskey. Here on the show, we do a little bit of tasting and a lot of talking. Usually we talk about whiskey, but the best thing about whiskey is the conversations that we get to have, and we get to talking about a little bit of everything. I'm your host, Doug, or as I'm known around the internet, Demi Tastes. I'm joined today, as usual, by my co-host, Phil. We have no special guests today. We, in fact, have a lot to unpack, and it's been a while since we talked. I think I said that last time, though, and that was about a month ago, and we haven't really had any guests since. So really, it's just that a lot of stuff keeps happening. Let's see. I need to remove distractions from my peripheral vision. I set up a new monitor. Believe it or not, I've been doing this live stream on a single monitor this whole time until about 2 months ago. And I finally set up a second monitor in my setup because it's nice to have dashboards and things, but I am definitely not used to it. So forgive me as I look off screen and keep getting distracted by things. Hopefully it won't be too bad. Hey, Carrie, good to see you. Let's see. So I guess we're going to start by giving a little preview of what we're going to talk about today, and we'll let people kind of trickle in before we really get into the meat of it. So we have kind of two main topics that we're going to talk about today that are in the title of the video, and then we'll see how it goes. So one is, let's talk about ACSA. So American Craft Spirits Association Conference happened last week in Tucson. I was there. And I'm not going to name drop. So before a certain person in the chat has a heart attack, I am working on a project I'm not the showrunner on this project, but I am working on a project that is a professional production that is related to American single malt whiskey. So our visit to Tucson was in large part in service of that project. So unlike last year, where I basically went I did some amount of coverage of the event. I went to a lot of sessions last year, like a lot of the educational sessions, just to see what people in the industry are talking about. And I did a lot of networking. This year was a lot more about leveraging those connections, talking to people, a lot of them on record, both for this project and a little bit. I've been practicing doing shorter. I said we wouldn't get into it, and then I went straight on into it. But we'll circle back around. So that's sort of the high level ACSA. There is stuff to talk about in terms of who won awards, what cool sessions did we see, and what content that's going to produce for this podcast. We have a bit of a content schedule coming up, but a lot of it is not exactly scheduled. And part of that is because a lot of it is going to be pre-recorded content, and we're going to do that according to our guests' availability. And we haven't figured out when we will air that content. So we're figuring out how to do this channel a little bit differently now. And okay, so that's topic number one. We're going to talk about ACSA. Topic number two. I cleared it off my desk to get it out of the way. We are going to talk about the Courage and Conviction, the Draftsmen set. Phil has a much better view of it on camera than I do. This is a blend your own whiskey kit, and we will get into exactly what that means. I find it amusing, though, that we've had Amanda Beckwith of Virginia Distillery Company on our podcast twice. And we have tortured her with our own little custom ad hoc blends at the end of the podcast. This little bit that we invented pretty specifically to mess with blenders, because it's fun and they're good. They're game for it. And then it turns out something like 6 months later, they've released a blend your own kit where they give you instructions about how to do it. I haven't opened up this box. I don't know what's in it, but we're basically going to figure it out from scratch, slow TV style, blend our own whiskey kit, time permitting. And keeping in mind that we know our audience's attention spans are not as long as we tend to run this show. So we're working on that. And we are going to try to, despite the long agenda that we have today, we are going to try to wrap this up around, let's say 6:45. So we're going to aim for an hour and a half live and see how it goes. And also, I wish that I had better statistics of like who won awards at ACSA. I might try to figure that out by reconstructing it from my video uh, while Phil stalls, and I figure out the statistics live on stream. So one of the fun things about going out of town for a week, when this is not your day job, because this is not my day job, is you come back to a ton of things to do. So it's been a bit chaotic, but maybe in a good way. So anyway, I've done way too much on this intro so far. Phil, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Um, you may notice that the depth of field and whatnot on my camera is different this week, and that's because I'm using a different machine. Uh, please let us know if I encounter any issues. I suspect that I already am based on how sort of jagged and uneven my video is.
Yeah, it's a little bit low frame rate, but I can hear you just fine, so I'll take it.
Yep. So, uh, sort of probably a good idea to start with a 1,000 foot, look at what ACSC is all about, right?
Yeah, that is a really good point. Do you want to take a crack at it, or should I take a crack at it?
Well, I've never actually been. My understanding
Yeah,
of
that's
ACSA is that it is sort of a gathering of industry professionals, particularly from craft spirits distilleries and vendors that support them, that you know share information, get together, and learn from one another. Uh, a little bit of trade show, which is like you walk around and you look at say I don't know that they are there, but say Forsyth has a booth where they're talking about building stills. You get to learn
Yep.
about what sets their stills apart from other manufacturers like Alembic or any of the other still builders, and get to talk to coopers and whatnot, and expand your professional and perhaps personal network of contacts within the industry. Get to try other people's products. I believe that there is an awards um, banquet, for lack of a better term, where um, people get to submit, or companies get to submit their spirits for judging and awards, and then get to cheer on the folks that you met through the industry as they win their awards.
Yep, that is all correct, and thank you for helping me stall.
Of course.
So, for those of you who say, "Oh, that sounds like fun. I would like to go." I want to emphasize that this is a industry conference. This is not like a whiskey show where you go and stop at booth after booth and try 40 different whiskeys over the course of 2 hours. This instead is a 3-day long conference with educational content for people in the industry. And I go not to enjoy whiskey, but to basically act as media for the craft spirits industry, especially craft whiskey, and especially American single malt whiskey. And one of the other fun things that happens at this conference, because so many American single malt whiskey producers are craft whiskey producers that qualify as members of the American Craft Spirits Association, the ASMWC, the American Single Malt Whiskey Commission, has their annual meeting in the same city as and at the same time as the ACSA conference is taking place. So that is the very specific draw for me to go to this conference. It's not technically part of the conference, but they sort of make it so the schedule works out that there's not really an overlap in events, at least not like core educational sessions. So like the conference is going to run from 9 to 5 on 2 or 3 days. And then there's usually evening events of a sort that are kind of like there's an opening party on the first night, and then there's a cocktail hour sort of thing on the second night, and then there's the grand tasting of all of the ACSA Spirits Awards winners. There's a spirits competition involved, as you said. So what they do is everyone who won an award, not necessarily everyone who entered, because they wouldn't want to highlight people who didn't pass the bar, right? So there's gold, silver, and bronze awards, and then I guess there's no awards. They don't reveal the no awards, but they reveal all of the gold, silver, and bronze awards, and they put them all out in a room, a very large room, like a banquet hall, think, out on tables, and they give everybody these Glencairn glasses, as a matter of fact. So you walk in, you grab a Glencairn, and you start sampling all of the spirits that are there that won awards. So because all of the spirits there won awards, they tend to be very good. And so that's a very fun night. And our friends Adam and Nora at Lost Lantern use this as an opportunity to research brands they might like to work with in the future, among other things. I use it as research for who I might like to invite on the podcast, which I don't only do on the basis of how things taste. Although that is, I want to be able to say good things about the product. So that is part of it. I also like that usually the people who entered these bottles into this competition are present at the tasting, and you can talk to them while you're tasting the whiskey. So you can all, like, you not only taste the whiskey, but you can also learn a bit from them about what their priorities are in terms of making it, and just sort of get a vibe check, right? Like, is this going to be a good fit for the podcast? So as long as we're talking about the spirits competition, we might as well bring up, I have definitely lost that link now. I sent it to Discord, right?
The link
the winners.
Yeah, give me a second.
I just need to scroll up a bit and I will find it. There it is. Make that font bigger. Accept cookies. All this good stuff.
I wish that they were actual cookies.
Yeah, right. We need Cookie Monsters. All right. And then we share. Yeah. Okay. So let's just get right on into talking about who won. So this is not a complete list of who won awards. This is the best of class and the best in show. So ACSA is all craft spirits, which includes distilled specialty spirits. And this, of course, is an important thing to highlight, because when you go into a spirits competition and you hear that there's going to be flavored whiskey and infused liqueurs and the stuff, like last year they had the Eggo waffle flavored cream liqueur thing, tasted exactly like it said. Too sweet for me, not my thing, but it did win an award. So, but that wasn't this year. This year, the best in show was the distilled spirit specialty best of class. And they also won a packaging award, or innovation award. Sorry. There's also a packaging award. I think this press release might have a typo, because I don't remember some of the, I think this is like from an old edition, because it says 5th annual and I don't recognize this. Oh, maybe, I don't know. Some part of this is a typo. So we're going to ignore that for now, because yes, sure, you buy with your eyes, but this show isn't really about packaging. So we can, in the interest of time, we can at least ignore that section. So the 2025 11th Annual American Craft Spirits Competition Best of Class recipients, Vidisha's Masala Liqueur won Best in Show, and it also won the Distilled Specialty Spirits and the Innovation Award. I tried that spirit, and I recorded on my my DJI Osmo, which is currently plugged in, so I'm not going to pick it up and show you. But this is like a self-stabilizing camera that you can use to like film while you're walking around without the camera jumping all over the place. Actually is a really useful tool to have. It was also really useful to have that as a record myself at the grand tasting reacting to a few things. So of course I reacted to the best in show. And my assessment was essentially, and if we ever get around to editing segments out of this video, I'll probably edit in this clip. I said essentially, this is really good and I want a bottle. Which for a distilled specialty spirits, like, I mean, there's a reason it won best in show. But I don't expect to say that necessarily about a distilled specialty spirit. So that just goes to show how good it is even for a whiskey drinker, right? If you like woody spice and you like things like cardamom and fennel, and it tastes like, depending on how exotic of Indian food you get into, like it tasted like a whole banquet of Indian food, all the way from the appetizers to the dessert, kind of coming in waves in the glass. It was just a really fun thing. I'm not going to highlight every one of these. I don't necessarily know all of these companies. But I will say that I have already invited Jamie from Lion Rum to come on and talk to us about their best in class award-winning rum. This podcast has featured vodka, brandy, gin, non-alcoholic spirits, some other whiskeys besides American single malt whiskey, but we have not yet to date done a rum. And it's good rum, and and she's a great personality. So looking forward to that. So that's a little teaser of upcoming content that is essentially as a result of this. Now, the interesting thing, these are all the best in class. I don't necessarily have to agree with best in class. The whiskey was not an American single malt. It would have been so cool if it was, though, because the big deal about American single malt at this year's ACSA is American single malt was just ratified back in December. And that rule went into effect in January. And the ASMWC meeting was the big toast celebrating, we did it, we're here, and now it's an uphill battle of education and so on, right? The job is not done. This podcast still has a reason to exist. Yeah, I mean, it would have been really cool if the whiskey best in class had been an American single malt. It was not. There were some very good gold award winners at the grand tasting. I pretty much never left the American single malt whiskey table, and there was a whole table for American single malt whiskey. Weirdly, it was complete. Yes, it was. Weirdly, it was completely across the room from the bourbon and the rye. Literally opposite ends of the room. The bourbon table was as far away from the American single malt as it was possible to be, which I thought was hilarious. But in a way, I think it was good for us because everyone I know in the American single malt whiskey industry hovered around that table most of the night. And I got a chance to talk to them and enjoy the happy hour, essentially the happy hour drinks with them. I think it's probably, in a way, it's probably good that the people who are interested in bourbon didn't necessarily get too attracted to the American single malt whiskey because, you know, whiskey is whiskey. And then, I don't know. I don't want to say that would have been a problem. Because I mean, I'm of two minds about this. It would have been great for bourbon people to try American single malt and go, oh, wow, that's really cool. On the other hand, I got to enjoy a much more relaxing evening because that table was not swarmed by everyone else who was interested in whiskey. So, you know,
I say, as someone who is very deeply into whiskey, I'm sitting in a room with over 260 bottles of whiskey in it. Sometimes the bourbon people are a bit much.
Yeah. That's, in a way, that's part of what I'm trying to say. But really it's just, so, okay, consider, if you will, last year, the best in show was Garrison Brothers Cowboy Bourbon, if I'm not mistaken. The 2023 batch, because the entries have to come in several months before the competition actually happens. So ACSA being in February or March to give enough time for judging, because the judging doesn't happen on site at ACSA. It happens in the months preceding. It's all anonymous. The judges' identities are known, but one of the cool things about ACSA is that the judges' feedback is provided to the people who entered their products. So this competition is a great opportunity to know exactly why you won or didn't win, and also to get feedback, which may or may not be actionable, depending on whether it was subjective preference based as a reason for a low rating, for example. I heard such things from Caitlin Bartlemay and Mark Viertaler, along the lines of, essentially it was like, I wish there was more smoke, or I wish there was less smoke, or I wish there was more sherry, or I wish that it wasn't cask strength. And it's just like, but that's the definition of this product. So like, it's good to know that's the reason that a judge didn't like it, but it's not exactly actionable feedback in a sense.
Yeah.
But again, like, they don't know, right? The judging is completely blind. So when they're saying like, oh, this is pretty hot, they don't know it's supposed to be a cask strength product, because the reveal of the product happens after they've turned in their notes. So this is not a knock on the judges either. It's just the way things shake out.
Yeah. I will say that those comments have always struck me as kind of being like, if you've ever turned in like a book report and the teacher's like, oh, I really wish that you would have read a different book for this report. Which,
yes, it's a bit too late for that feedback.
yeah.
Let's see if we have any comments over on the Instagram before we get too far along.
When I had that up and I wasn't paying attention.
I just need to find it. Oh, I see what happened. Okay. Yep. Cool. And you can see one of the other tabs that's up. I just want to highlight this. Corsair Triple Smoke American Single Malt Whiskey is a product I did not already know about, but made a really strong impression on me. The distiller was not present to my knowledge, but I would really love to talk to them. They have another American single malt product. We can maybe go explore. I'm not seeing it on the website. There was another American single malt product on the table that was not the triple smoke, that also was very good in the sense that it had no faults. It was a very, like, to my subjective palate, was a very like a is an American single malt whiskey. But this one, the triple smoke, I want to highlight as, this was very cool. So you've got cherry, beechwood, and peat smoked barley. So unlike Copper Fox, which uses only hardwood smoke, but like our friends at Andalusia, uses also peat smoked barley. You get a nice mix of stuff, and this was really rich in that sort of cherrywood smoke, and also like that sort of furfural cherry notes. At some point in the evening, somebody said cherry chapstick, and I'm like, normally I would say that sounds like a bad note, but like in a good way, right? In the same way that like there's something about the interaction of the cherrywood smoke and the peat smoke, where the peat smoke gives you that sort of petroleum derivative flavor profiles, like your Band-Aids and your tar. And then combine that with the sort of cherry flavors that you get from the cherry smoke, and like all that together, if you like look at it just the right way, you say, oh, cherry chapstick. But like in a good way. So anyway, that was one thing I'd like to point out. Let's see, I'm going to stop sharing the screen now because I have nothing else queued up to show. Fun anecdote related to these tastings. So typically what happens at these tastings is nobody, like after the end of the tasting, nobody wants to deal with all these half empty bottles of whiskey. So it is an open secret that at these tastings, you take bottles to go. And depending on the event, the specifics of the venue, and so on, you do that more or less overtly. So last year, at the Denver convention, it was At exactly 10:30 or whatever the end of the event was, they're going to blink the lights, and at that moment in time, you grab and go with whatever you wanted to take home with you. Like
And Bartle may
usually,
beat you to something, right?
and Bartle may beat me to one of the Delbach, the Frontera, if I'm not mistaken, which we can talk more about Frontera in a minute. This year, the convention center was a little weird on the rules, where they're saying you're not allowed to leave here with whiskey, but also we really don't want to have to deal with all the whiskey that's here, or the spirits, everything, right? And also,
Right.
attendance at this conference this year, Tucson is a bit more out of the way. The attendance was good, but it was not nearly as packed as the Denver convention was. So there was a lot less scrambling to grab things, and a lot more because this event staff was basically like, you're not supposed to leave with open containers. So a lot of people were sort of grabbing a bottle and walking off and then sliding it into their bag about half an hour before the event was over. This was all well and good and expected for the grand tasting.
Right.
Do you want to guess what I took home with me? Do you know? Did I tell you already?
No, you didn't.
I did not, actually. Someone grabbed that before I got to it. I would have, but honestly, there were things on the table I wanted more. I don't know how much time you spend on Instagram, Phil, but there was a particular bottle of whiskey in the American single malt whiskey space that captured all of whiskey Instagram. From bourbon drinkers to American single malt drinkers to Scotch drinkers, just everybody was talking about this bottle.
I don't spend enough time on Instagram.
Fair enough. Okay, so the quintessential cigar malt. This really, the 2024 release, this really has captured so much of the whiskey mindshare. Cedar Ridge is, I think it's fair to say at this point, without excluding anybody, is absolutely one of the best American single malts, probably one of the best whiskeys in the United States, especially the Cedar Ridge Quintessential. I think it's fair to say is one of the best whiskeys in the United States. It's got so much attention. Everybody loves it. It wins all kinds of awards. Interestingly, and I haven't asked what the feedback was, this actually only won silver at ACSA. Hopefully they're okay with me saying that. It's sort of, I think this information is open. It's just a matter of whether they want to market on that basis.
Yeah.
For me, this was a good thing, right? I haven't touched this bottle since I got home. This was the amount of this bottle that was consumed at the grand tasting. And I think it's not because this isn't excellent whiskey, because this is excellent whiskey. It's simply because it had the silver sticker on it. And a lot of people tended to gravitate towards the golds. So I didn't take this early. I left this on the table until the table was empty enough that I was worried someone would take it just because it was one thing that was left. So I left it till pretty close to the end, but I was fully intending to take this home after about the first hour when I saw this isn't going very fast. So one, this is a very cost effective or a space effective way of taking home a bunch of whiskey from ACSA. And also I really like this whiskey. And I didn't even need to taste it at the grand tasting to know that, because one of these over here, because I actually got a sample of the cigar malt from Murph and already tasted it and formed my opinions. So, speaking of which, we're going to have Murph on the podcast to talk about this and the Wine Club and the peated Amontillado cask, which you have right there. There's a lot of really good stuff coming out of Cedar Ridge, and it has been more than a year since the last time we talked to him, so we're really looking forward to that. I haven't scheduled. So, okay, what's the other bottle I brought home? Okay, this is, I know you have no way of guessing. Here's a hint that you might get. Who is someone I've really wanted to talk to, but for whatever reason, because the timing hasn't been right, because signals were mixed in terms of how happy or not they were with the ratification. That we have not yet gotten to talk to. Okay.
I have a stab in the dark.
Okay.
I believe they're from Wisconsin, right? Or no? Minnesota?
Minnesota.
Is it Brother Justice?
It is. So you may remember Raymond brought home the cold peated, I guess the 2023 edition of the cold peated last year. Brother Justice won gold for the white American single malt, so basically unaged. Like it touched wood, but it is it is essentially unaged. To me, that tasted like a pretty clean banana forward rum, which is very good.
Interesting.
But in terms of my own palate sensibilities, what I wanted to go home with, so the cold peated this year, maybe change of palate, maybe just a new batch, didn't quite tickle me the same way. Out of the 3 bottles that were on table, the white, the cold peated, and the American single malt, I preferred the American single malt. And apparently a lot of people there did not, which I am quite surprised by. This is a very good whiskey. I'm also a bit surprised that the white whiskey won gold. I don't remember what award the cold peated got, but this one got bronze. And I don't know. This is a very good whiskey. This is one of my. I had more than one glass of this at the grand tasting. Let's put it that way. I apparently really like this whiskey, and a lot of other people didn't go for it. Which again, I think not because it's not good, but because of the bronze sticker. People choose things with their eyes. Everybody wants to try all the gold label winners. It is what it is.
So this is one of those things that, like, I've said before, and I've probably gotten onto my soapbox about it and made some people unhappy with me about it. But a lot of these awards mean very little to the consumer. Hey, you who likes whiskey, that bottle that's got a little sticker on it that says double gold winner of San Francisco Spirits Competition. Yeah, it's a darn good whiskey. You know what else is pretty good and might actually be more to your taste? That one over there that took home silver or bronze. And you never know until you try it or read reviews with notes and with less emphasis on a numeric score or a, hey, this won an award at this spirits competition. That is just me, though. And I'll step down off my soapbox now.
I wonder if this press release here says who the judges were. Yes. Okay. So rather than trying to remember them off the top of my head and wonder whether I'm allowed to share this information, it actually just is on the website. So just, as long as we're talking about this, I don't know who all of these people are. I imagine. Somebody's going to say, you don't know who that is, but let me just point out a few names that are awesome. Lou Bryson, author of Tasting Whiskey, which was my first sensory, I guess my first guide to whiskey, my first guide to tasting whiskey, as the title says. Let's see, Mark Gillespie, Whiskey Cast. Becky Harris, who we are going to have on the show soon. Paul Hletko, who is the founder of Few Spirits. So we're going to have Aaron Lee of Few Spirits on the show for a pre-recorded episode. I had not met Paul before this ACSA, so that was very cool. Sydney Jones. I ran into Sydney Jones. She was also on the tasting panel, which is very cool. I ran into Phil Morgan, who Phil, you weren't there for that episode because it was a pre-recorded, but we talked to Phil about the Arcane Spirits brand, the Arcane Imperial, and he's moved on to a number of other projects in the industry. So I thought it was cool to sort of highlight those names. And Phil, I think you might have frozen on me. Pat, which product was the Founders Reserve 2? What brand was that? Phil is reconnecting. Do we have you back? Yeah?
I am
moving?
back, hopefully. I apologize, folks. Apparently stretching the very boundaries of my little ThinkPad's computing powers. But we're working on improving this. I promise.
Yeah, actually, so yeah, as long as we're talking production, we have big plans for improving the production quality in a few different ways. As I mentioned, we're working on a professional video project. Perhaps some of the output of that project will be interviews that we air on this channel. Otherwise, we'll let you know where to find them. We are dedicated to improving Phil's setup, to say the least.
Yeah.
So we're gonna figure that out. Some of these things will cost money.
I would like to say, as soon as I have Windows reinstalled on the Alienware gaming computer that is only 3 years old, I will go back to using that, provided it doesn't give me the same issues after I reinstall Windows and all of the drivers.
Yeah, it's been okay, but we've ruled out everything else besides the laptop. So
yeah,
the fact that the laptop crashed is both unsurprising, and trying to recover it is back to status quo. We need to do better. But anyway, we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
That's not really an on-air kind of thing to discuss. So Pat says the Brother Justice Founders Reserve 2 was phenomenal. And I honestly don't remember if I tried that one. So because that's not this one, the American Single Malt. The Founders Reserve. Hold on. What is the Founders Reserve?
To Google.
Yes, to Google we go. And of course, if you look up Founders Reserve, you find no shortage of products. Brother Justice Founders Reserve, which is why I asked the question in the first place. This isn't the cold peated. I recognize that label. Maybe I confused it with, maybe it was also on the table. Maybe they didn't enter it. I honestly don't know. Sorry. It's easy to remember the things that are in front of me. It's hard to remember the things that I did not necessarily see or remember. So there was a lot going on. Okay. So what did I do during this year's ACSA? Because as I mentioned, I didn't go to a lot of sessions. I went to sessions. I selected the sessions to attend for a few reasons. Either the session was last year I went to sessions that sounded interesting to me as someone who wanted to learn more about how people in the industry were thinking about the industry and what they do. That's getting an angle on the industry. This year was much more networking driven for me. So the events that I chose to go to were those that were hosted by people that I already know in the industry, for the most part, not exclusively, but for the most part. So I went to the Meet the Candidates for the ACSA board meeting because I knew that Caitlin Bartolome was a candidate, and I wanted to be there to support her. Also, it was a great place to run into people and get some B-roll. So, like I said, we're aiming for more professional quality projects here. So one of my functions for this entire week was actually to film people collaborating with each other, right? Talking at events, whether they're at the podium, behind the microphone, whether they're in the audience asking questions, whether they're chatting in the halls or after the sessions, that sort of thing. And not really trying to get sound bites, but trying to get like stuff that does well on film. No audio, stuff that you can cut in while you're listening to people talking about whatever other thing. So there was a motivation to get a concentration of the American single malt whiskey producers that we want to feature into some B-roll. So that was one of the things I was doing. And I was very worried that I would come off as intrusive by sticking a camera at people who are just talking in the hall. I was told that I did it in a very tasteful way. And also people are just used to cameras being at events like this. So that went fine. My other function was to recruit people to sit down at an improvised studio for interviews recorded with good lighting, with a nice background, and that sort of thing. And my third function was walk around the convention floor and talk to people that I haven't talked to before. I am going to mess up. I'm not even going to try. I'm going to mess up the name of this this distillery. But there is a distillery in South Carolina. I really hope I'm getting that right. That rebranded since last year. They changed their name. And it's going to bother me that I can't remember what their name was. And I did about a 15-minute interview with them about their product. Why were they interesting? Because they have American single malt whiskey of, I won't say old, but of a significant age. Like, they've been doing it for a while. They've got, I think it was a 5-year-old. They have barley from 2 locations, and they have a facility set up for contract distilling where they're aiming to provide contract distilled American single malt. I thought that was pretty cool. The fact that American single malt is big enough that contract distillers are providing a spec for it. Did you figure out who this
It is currently Hilton Head. Unfortunately, I don't know enough about distilleries in that part of the states to figure out what they are rebranding from, if that makes sense.
I have their card. Hang on.
One of the things that's kind of
the
interesting
problem with. Go ahead.
One of the things that's interesting about the craft spirit space is how often it evolves, and distilleries either change hands or rebrand under new management, or an attempt to appeal to their local community and customer base more effectively. And there were a couple that I won't name because some of them I'm not sure what the reason for the rebranding was. Went from being, sort of cheekily named to having a more grounded name relating to local history or geography. And then
in this case, that is true. In this case, it's in the interview to some short extent, but it didn't feel like it aligned any more or less with their mission. It felt like a rebranding for reasons. So, I mean, I guess, okay, so the new name is Statesville Contract Distilling. And don't quote me on this because I haven't taken notes on all of these interviews yet, but I believe what they said they could publicly say is they are the contract distiller for Brothers Bond Bourbon.
Okay.
And that is the only customer they were able to name, but they said they have 150 customers, which is a wild number to me. I mean, there's only 3,000 distilleries in the United States and NDPs, maybe more if you include NDPs. I don't know. The fact that they serve 150 customers is wild.
Yeah. That is a lot.
That is a lot. I got an interview with Independent Stave Company talking about, among other people, they serve Virginia Distillery Company. Mm-hmm. So, and interestingly, a lot of times when they give, yes, and of course you've got the whole display behind you.
Yeah.
And as we know, Virginia Distillery Company uses Brown-Forman ex-bourbon barrels.
Right.
So one of the questions I asked them was, does Brown-Forman sell those on directly to Virginia Distillery Company, or are they in the loop? Like, do they recover the barrels and then sell them on? And it sounded like they said more the latter.
Huh.
So that's these interviews. I'm trying out different styles, right? Like having both people in a selfie camera for an interview is a style I tried. I'm not sure I like that. Standing behind the camera and pointing the camera at the interviewee where I'm not in it, except for my voice, is a style I tried. I'm not sure that I like that. I also had for the Statesville contract distilling, I had 2 people on camera and mic'd up on a lav mic, and I was behind the camera, so that aside from I can use the audio from the camera, I don't think my questions will be particularly audible, and it was quite loud in there at the time. So the lav mics were important. I'm trying out a bunch of different styles for like how I'm going to get more interviews without having to have everybody on the podcast. And these conventions are a good time to grab somebody for 15, 20 minutes, assuming they're not busy, right? Like being kind to the people who are walking by who might also want to talk to them. If they have Independent Stave Company had several functions that were all like, it was like 3 stalls lined up next to each other, where they have different functions as a company, or they're all affiliated, and they had like 4 representatives there and virtually no line. I think I mean, it's good for barrel makers to be at these conventions. Kelvin was at the last year's one. I don't think they were there this year. To have ISC there, and they had 4 representatives and nobody waiting in line, I said, great, would you mind if I ask you a few questions and record an interview? Because I wasn't getting in anybody's way. So I think as long as you're not getting in anybody's way, it's like okay to do that kind of thing. The goal of event media is to not get in the way of the purpose of the event, which is not to give me, a random YouTuber, some content, but is to help industry people learn from each other and make connections and do business.
Right.
It's a trade convention, not a consumer convention. So, okay, that's ACSA. Oh, let's talk about the sessions. So I talked about how I chose the sessions I went to. Let's talk about the sessions that I did go to. There was a symposium on independent bottling featuring Anna Hinz from Westland, who supplies both Lost Lantern and Single Cask Nation. So it was a triple presenter presentation session, where it was Nora from Lost Lantern and Jason Johnston Yellen from Single Cask Nation talking about how they do independent bottling. And both of those independent bottlers are not exclusively focused on American single malt whiskey, but of course Anna Hinz is. And so there was a little bit of a lean to American single malt whiskey being the topic of the day. I recorded some really good sound bites from that, which I hope to get to use in some form of content. We'll see. I went to Aaron Lee's symposium on tea extractions in water and alcohol, and how you build spirits around the flavor profile of a really high quality tea with a nice tasting. And
I just realized that I should probably fill the dead air. Sorry, I'm just out of practice, I guess. It's been too long.
I gave you no notice on that one, so that's fine. I took out one of the bottles. I took out one of the bottles and I can't find it. Hang on. But anyway, we're gonna have few spirits on a pre-recorded show soon, and this is a smoked malt, not a single malt. I hate when Twitch bots make me be a mod.
Yeah, don't worry about. I'll take care of it. You keep talking.
Cool. So we're gonna have Aaron Lee talk about a few spirits and good deeds. You can see good deeds behind me right there. That's batch 1. Batch 2 is coming in the mail. Phil already has his batch 2. Should have given you a heads up on that one too.
Hold on. Ta-da. I had it within arm's reach.
Fantastic.
Somehow.
And there's another one. This is the one I can't find. There's another one, which is the Smashing Pumpkins collaboration with Few, which uses a rose tea infusion as the proofing water. And that is a delicious whiskey. And since Erin before her career in distilling was a tea expert, sommelier, for lack of a better term, talking about a product that is both whiskey and tea related with her, I think is going to be a lot of fun. I don't have that bottle to show you, but I've already posted that bottle on my Instagram. So there's that. Caitlin Bartlemay did a talk about storytelling in marketing. I went to that to support her. And Anna Montiakis, who we've had on the show twice, did a talk about essentially the engineering of or like the data science behind finding yield issues or flavor issues in your production process, which as an engineer really appealed to me as a topic of a talk. And I think is really seeing Anna in her absolute ideal environment of she is the data expert at Westward Whiskey. So that was a really fun talk to go to. I think there was like 5 sessions total that I went to because the rest of the time I was walking around the convention floor. I recorded a brief. We were only able to find half an hour, and we were only able to record for about 15 minutes of that. Jason Johnston Yellen and I did a walk around the convention floor during the last hour of the last day that was open, and had a little chat. So like maybe that's podcast content. We'll see. It might be short video content, like a YouTube 10-minute long video kind of thing. So we'll see about that. Who else did I get? We did a lot of interviews in the makeshift professional studio. We would have liked a longer interview with Steve Hawley, but we did get his toast to the American Single Malt Whiskey Commission at the tasting. So that was good. We got Phil Steger, Brother Justice. We got what's his last name? Someone from VDC that I had never met before. Dustin, if I remember correctly. I got to know his Instagram handle. Dustin Castor. The distillery and packaging director of VA Distillery. Gave us a good hour-long interview. Anna Hins. Man, just never start making a list. Just you always learn the hard way. Don't make a list. Yeah. So, and then one last thing for the trip that I want to mention is that I appeared as a secondary guest or a secondary co-host, however you want to look at that, on the Crafted Conversations podcast interview with Mark Viertaler at Del Bach the day after the convention was over. Mark was good enough to give us basically his whole morning so that we could record 2 interviews with him, as a matter of fact, neither of which will air directly on this podcast. But that brings me to another thing that I wanted to show off today, which is it's the homepage of our YouTube channel. Let's be real. But I like being able to show that we've thought about doing another interesting thing. Which window is this? There we go. So I have added a playlist. So Single Malt Frontier collabs and features. We officially have enough videos on other people's channels that it felt worth having a playlist of those things. So my first interview off of this channel was with Embellish Podcast. So that's over here. And that was basically an interview of me and just a fun chat with John. Talking about my efforts in writing an American Single Malt Whiskey book. Still underway. I believe I have found the narrative. Writing has commenced. I don't want to tell anyone that it's getting close to done until the draft is finished, but I'm getting to the point where I'm finding what I'm missing. so that we can start targeting interviews at filling in what I'm missing. Because this podcast was originally meant to collect research for the book. And the podcast, of course, becomes a self-sustaining thing that demands content of a sort. And we like doing it. Not all of the content that we record here explicitly moves the needle on the book. And in the interest of time and being a little bit more focused, I want to try a little bit harder to do more of that. Not like exclusively switch over to only if it helps the book, but to try to do a little bit more to prioritize what helps the book. I've been on Blind Sample Showdown 3 times. That's always a fun time. Daniel Whittington gave everybody an opportunity, like all the Whiskey Tube channels, an opportunity to post a video on the Whiskey Vault. So this is my video here, but I was contributing a review of a whiskey for the Whiskey Vault's Dry Week. So while they were not doing content, they let the rest of Whiskey Tube do a takeover of the channel. That was fun. So that's my video over there. I do have a copy of this video on my channel, but it's unlisted because really you should just go to the source, right? Go to the one. And, you know, because of the audience on that video, it is the most viewed video we have at only 1,200 views. But, you know, we're getting better. And then most recently, and I put this in the thumbnail of today's video, so this is one thing I want to talk about, is Daniel Whittington reviewed our McCarthy's pick. In the interest of time, I don't want to like do a reaction to that video on stream today, but I am planning on doing a reaction to that video and editing that down because I don't want to like show his whole video with my reaction and like it's not my content. It's his review. But there are some key moments in that video that I think would be worth me reacting to. And I watched that video like a week ago, and I, you know, now I have enough distance from it that I'm going to watch it again and look for some details and sort of react and comment on it. And one fun thing that I can do is I have many fresh bottles of our barrel pick, but I have a fresh bottle of our barrel pick, and I have an almost empty bottle of our barrel pick. And so I can sort of add on my reaction of like, what's the difference between a brand new bottle and an almost empty bottle? Like, how does the flavor drift go? So I thought that would be a fun thing to do. So look out for that. That obviously won't go in the features. I hope that the features category gets bigger because certainly within the industry, I think it's fair to say this podcast has gotten some attention. I would like to make good on the fact that we are a non-industry source of education about single malt and create some more accessible content. And also maybe appear on more other people's channels. We'll see. But that's just kind of the way that I'm thinking about the channel. So cool. Okay. Got about half an hour left. I think at this point we should get on into the Blend Your Own Courage and Conviction kit.
Yes.
Did you manage to do the moderating thing?
I'm working on it.
Okay.
Twitch is being its usual interesting self.
Yeah, how is it that I like why don't I have a mod menu on this thing?
Well, it won't let me do any moderator things, so I think it's just Twitch being Twitch.
I figured it out.
For those of you on YouTube and Instagram, we've got a spam bot in the Twitch chat, which isn't surprising because that seems to be the primary comment we get on Twitch, because that is a massive issue on Twitch in general. Just in case you weren't aware, I don't know anybody who streams on Twitch that doesn't have a massive problem with bots such as this who go on and go, oh, you have less than X number of viewers. Would you like to buy viewers? Or, hey, click this link for rewards from your favorite creators and stuff like that. And Twitch is either powerless to do anything about it or unwilling. And it's anybody's best guess which.
Yeah, you know, we don't need to extend on that commentary, so
No,
Turns
sorry,
out
I'm just
turns
frustrated.
out avoiding spam is hard. That's the entire that's the whole deal there. Okay. So the Draftsmen. So I do want to emphasize none of the products we're talking about on today's stream were given to us. These are purchased with our own money.
Nope.
And we did it because we love it. And I just thought it would be so cool for us. First of all, I mean, forget about the fact that we have a podcast. So many people are getting this kit. What? Let the card fall out. So many people are getting this kit because this is just such a cool thing. Like you get to. So let's open up the kit. I have not. I've seen pictures of what's in the kit, but I haven't opened it up yet. So you get a card. So what's on this card? There are 3 components in this box, and it is a big box, by the way. It's a surprisingly big box, all things considered, because if I'm not mistaken, so first of all, you get a VDC branded neat glass that's in here. I'm going to try not to like let anything fall out of the box while I hold this up. So you get the neat glass, the VDC branded neat glass, to help you do your blending, because if you're buying this kit, clearly you don't have your own whiskey glass already, so they have to make sure that you get one. But hey, I don't mind. For $30, I think is what this kit was, including a glass in it.
Yeah.
Feels good.
A glass, 3 50-milliliter bottles of the constituent malts, a sherry, cuvee cask, and bourbon cask.
Yeah, so this I think is where my now hold on. There are more cards in here. Or okay, so one of these is explaining how this works. You also get to add your logo. So that'll be fun. Okay, so these are pretty large looking. I mean, there's a lot of glass here. These are pretty large looking. They're tall for 50 milliliters. And I think, not to be negative on the kit right off the bat, but for $30-ish, you get a glass and 150 milliliters of whiskey. You know, if you look at that in isolation,
a little dropper.
Oh yes, you get a little glass dropper so you can make your blend. 150 milliliters of whiskey, a glass, and a dropper for $30 plus shipping. And the fact that, I don't know about you, but I'm kind of a perfectionist, that I have 50 milliliters of each of the 3 components to work with to come up with a blend broken down into 10% increments. I am worried I'm going to run out. $30 seems like a lot for what you get in this box, but and not to be negative, I do want to contextualize the fact that when you, so just punch the mic again. When you buy this box, you also get the opportunity to ask them to blend your whiskey for you. So you get to tell them what the blend is in 10% increments, and then you send your recipe to them, and they will blend you a bottle. And that bottle, I believe, out of the state of Virginia, is $70. Inside, I believe it's $65.
Mm-hmm.
So the total cost of this experience, and you can buy multiple bottles as well, so keep that in mind. But assuming you buy 1 bottle of your blend, the total cost of this experience is basically $100 plus 2 sets of shipping. And, you know, taken an aggregate, right? If you just look at this box and say, I bought 150 milliliters of whiskey for $30 and I got a glass, is that a good deal? I don't know, but you're not, like, that's not what this is about. This is the starting point of a much bigger experience. And when you consider that experience in aggregate, $100 is not bad. So that is my commentary on price. I feel like too often we ignore the price question. So I wanted to just get that out of the way right away. Because, like, I don't know about you, Phil, but I think that some people think we've lost the plot on price.
Yeah. Well, okay. I would like to state for the record, these 4 bottles here, well, except for this one, which may cease to be available. It's the VHW, the old port cask. These 3 bottles 50% alcohol by volume. Stout cask finish. We've got the Goose Island, the Hardywood Gingerbread, and the Foothills Brewing Sexual Chocolate Imperial Stout. For roughly $50 for each of those, bottled and bond, or 50%. I mean, can't go wrong.
And remind me the proof on the final bottle of whiskey that we're going to get here.
I believe it is 46%. Nope, 50%. It says
50%. Yeah. Yeah. So again, $70 for 50% alcohol, custom blend to your specifications from 3 types of whiskey components. And we know the courage and conviction line, right? So let's get into this again. So the courage and conviction line is all bourbon cask matured, cuvee cask matured, and sherry cask matured. And the cuvee cask, for people who know Scotch, the cuvee is a French wine STR cask. So these are premium cask whiskeys here, and usually Courage and Conviction, like the double cask reserve, is about $100, I believe. The copper tube that we both have behind us,
yes,
I believe, is give or take $100. That one was a gift from the distillery though, so that's why I don't know the price of it. It's a problem, but it's also nice to not know the price of these things when we're reviewing them, because it lets us not factor price into the rating. I like to rate things and then look up the price and then not adjust my rating at that point and just give it a value rating.
Ooh.
Okay, so the deal with this card is this gives the instructions, I believe. Yeah, so on the back of the card, you get the instructions. There's a QR code where you can go to order your blend. So draft your custom American single malt whiskey. To celebrate the men who carved the path for our distillery, we offer an exclusive opportunity to draft your very own American single malt whiskey. Yep, they got the and I believe they're giving the whole Courage and Conviction thing with the magnet, like the whole, just like that bottle up there. So this is a premium bottle of whiskey.
The magnet is cool,
that you're going to get at the end of this. Sorry?
The magnet is cool, by the way.
Yeah, I really like the magnet.
Probably
okay, this kit includes a selection of 3 fully aged American single malt whiskeys matured in bourbon, red wine, and sherry casks. So that red wine, that I think it's French wine STR, the cuvee. See tasting notes for each whiskey on the back of this card. So they give you the tasting notes on these. Blend them together. So second, blend them together using the included dropper and glass to create your very own custom blend and provide us with the percentages in 10% increments. See the example on the back. Your final draft, once you place your order, we customize your bottle with your name and prescribed whiskey percentages. Allow 6 to 8 weeks for your order to ship. And then if you have questions or need assistance, email for help. So that's nice. I mean, this is a white glove experience, really. And I do want to point out that when we looked at the website at like the order your bottle thing, and I've been told that it is in fact you can order a single bottle, but the literature that arrived in the box and on the website says that pricing is $69.99 for a 40 case minimum of your blend, or $79.99 for a 20 case minimum blend. I believe this was originally meant for clubs and stores to do picks, to do their own custom thing in large case sales.
I believe this was intended for corporate customers initially, and given feedback from community members who, would like to do this sort of thing, they made it available, which is extremely cool. This is one of the most unique experiences in whiskey, and I'm extremely excited.
Yeah, the fact that they've opened this up to individual bottle purchases, and I mean, the fact that you have 10 options for the amount contained of each of these components, or do the math. It's a lot of I could do the math. I'm not going to do it live. There's a lot of options for the potential output here. Not to I make that point because it's not to the degree that they already have all this stuff blended and they're just going to pull something off the warehouse shelf when you order it. There are enough unique options here that they literally will have to blend it for you because it's absolutely impractical for them to do otherwise. They could not have this be an off the shelf. You give them just at the scale of the distillery. It's not a small distillery, but the number of options involved here, basically 1,000 different options, is, you know, upper bounded by 1,000 different options because 10 choices of percentages, 10% increments for each of 3 things. 10 times 10 times 10 is 1,000 different options. But then, of course, you know, you can't exceed 10 parts. So, you know, okay.
Shall we
I'm
get
gonna force
started?
I'm gonna force myself to do the math here now. For each of the 10 parts, you choose one of 3 whiskeys. So actually, there's 30 different blends. Do I have that right? No. There's 3 to the 10th power. That's what it is. I hope. I really should have just done this math later.
Look,
this is not a math
do
channel.
math.
Yeah.
It's one of the courses I did very poorly in school was math. Never been good at it, despite the fact that I grew up with a dad who is pretty good and very into complex mathematics.
Somehow I ended up with more than 1,000, so that seems wrong. I've done the math wrong. Maybe I'll record a segment where I correct the math later. But anyway, there's enough different possibilities here. There's no way this is an off-the-shelf thing. This has to be a bespoke custom blend to your recipe. So the fact that they're doing this at the scale that they are and that the total experience is $100, actually wild. Great value here. Great experience to have. Anyway, let's get into it. So the bourbon cask, I like that they kind of give you tasting notes to help guide your profile. Like going into this, I suspect that I'm going to want something that is slightly heavier on the bourbon cask because I don't personally love sherry bombs. And I'm probably going to want like somewhere in the range of probably like 60% bourbon and then split the difference on the cuvee and the sherry. I don't know if that's where I'm going to end up, but if I had to guess, that's where I think I'm starting. So do you have an initial guess about where you think you might start?
I think I'm probably going to want more of the sherry and the cuvee, purely because one of my favorite pours that I've ever had while out was a pour of the cask strength single sherry cask via distillery company at McMillan's Whiskey Room, which is an interesting bar.
And correct me if I'm wrong. I think you know the VDC portfolio better than I do. Each of these Courage and Conviction bottles that we have here are products in and of themselves.
Yes.
So the bourbon is a product, the cuvee is a product, and the sherry is a product.
Yes. They are. So you've got the flagship blend, which is a blend of the 3. You have the...
I just dropped my glass dropper on the floor, and it is right next to the wheel of my chair, and I'm trying not to break it while I try to pick it up.
Yeah. I'll wait until you're done.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. Got it.
Excellent. So you then have the Courage and Conviction bourbon cask, cuvee cask, sherry cask, and then additionally you have the single barrel cask strength, which is the, you know, in those categories again. And I believe that there is additionally the cask strength flagship blend, or a cask strength variant of the casks of the flagship blend, and the double barrel, of course, which is excellent stuff, by the way. I wholeheartedly recommend giving it a try.
And the proof on these samples is 46%. Which makes me wonder whether the actual end result is 50% or 46%.
I was thinking it would probably be 46%.
Oh,
because
I know what
that's-
we did. We misread this label. The 50% on the bottom. So this is the mistake I made. I don't know if Phil's was the same reason. Oh, I forgot. I don't have this camera focusing on the.
Oh yeah.
Maybe can I turn on? Yeah, 50% says that 50% at the bottom of that picture says it's 50% sherry cask, 20%. Yeah, you're having the same blurry camera thing as I am. Let me go.
Yeah.
I can turn on the autofocus real quick. Focus. Autofocus. Okay. So now now it'll focus on, okay, cool. So, all right. Autofocus is on, and here's the picture that we're looking at. So
Right.
maybe I'll make my camera bigger too. So that this is saying when they give you your final blend, they're gonna tell you, what your recipe was. The same recipe you gave them. So in this case, it's 20% bourbon, 30% cuvee, 50% sherry. So we saw that 50% sherry and said, oh, looks like 50% whiskey, but you can see there on the bottom it says 46% alcohol by volume. So correcting that bit of information from earlier, the end result will be a 46% whiskey, and all of these whiskeys that we have to work with are 46% whiskeys. All right. So what is your approach to like doing this blend? I actually want to go get a scale because I feel like I'm going to want to try lots of different blends here.
Oh, I'm just being slow.
I haven't done anything yet, so
I'm
I'm going to go get a scale because that's the way my brain wants to work. So, okay. Oh, okay. So the dropper is graduated in half, in quarter milliliter increments up to 1 milliliter. So I don't actually need to use the scale. I just need to use the dropper. But I do feel like, oh, we'll see. I'm gonna have to take so many notes. I wonder if the scale is sensitive enough even for that.
You know what just occurred to me? I'm going to leave for just a moment. I'm going to get myself a rinse glass because I didn't think to do that.
That is a great idea.
Actually, why don't you go do that first, and I will continue to communicate and fill dead air and explain. I don't have my water bottle with me, so
yeah, I'm good. I got the water bottle.
I will be right back.
All right, so I'm thinking I want to just taste all of these first. So yeah, let's do two things in one. So I'm gonna grab a milliliter. I need to pull this thing off a bit so I get some volume I can squeeze. Not too far though. I'm gonna first see, can I get, so all I was able to get was a 0.5 milliliter here. Let's see what that actually shows on the scale. A 0.5 milliliter does not even register on my scale down to the tenths. Let's see if I can get, what is it? Okay, so it starts registering when you get a milliliter on there. So yeah, the scale, not a great idea, but cool. So first things first, I'm going to try the bourbon cask. And there is nothing in here with 1 milliliter of whiskey. So there's going to be some work to do here. Okay. Entirely possible that 50 milliliters of whiskey will be enough for this project. So it's gentle, it's really fruity, it's got some apples to it, it's got something a little like pear or banana, something in that direction. Normally, I think the base distillate has kind of a buttery flavor to it, but I'm actually not getting that here. One of the things I got to try at ACSA was the Virginia Distillery Company new make. And I guess the reason that they have that this card does not indicate it, but sorry, Phil's back. I just did the solo layout for a minute.
Yep.
I was just saying one of the things I got to try at ACSA was their new make, actually, because Virginia Distillery Company has a contract distilling arm. There's American Custom Distilling, I believe, was the name of it. And that's what Dustin Castor was really there to represent, that angle of the business. What they had set up a booth on the convention floor, but it wasn't for Courage and Conviction or VDC products specifically. It was for, you can hire Virginia Distillery Company under the name American Custom Distilling to be a contract distiller for you.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I thought that was neat. And so one of the things they had there that I was not able to try before was their new make. And the new make, you know, that sort of buttery flavor that we've been getting on the VDC products, especially the Blue
Yeah.
Ridge, that's in the new make. I thought that was coming
Oh.
from the toasted oak, but it's
Yeah,
actually just there in the new make. It's always cool to try the new make if you can. So we sometimes like to talk about, like, what are the most scotchy American single malt whiskeys? VDC is among them. For a funkier style, Cedar Ridge, but Cedar Ridge, due to the first fill and sort of new oak qualities that they tend to include in their blends, it's funky the way that, like, a really malt heavy, like a there's this malt funk you get in, like, some scotch like Glenfiddich. Cedar Ridge has a similar kind of malt funk, and then it's accentuated by, like, the new oak. But as they're getting into their second fill products, Cedar Ridge is coming across as very much more like Scotch. Copperworks is a very Scotchy American single malt. And by that, I mean, like, if you're looking for the kinds of flavors you typically find in a Scotch, there are some American single malts that will give you that flavor. And for some people, that's a good thing. And contextually, you know, that's a good thing. I think the Courage and Conviction line and the VDC line in general being along those lines, I like that. It's a good thing for them. So, okay, the problem, Phil, that I'm having is, first of all, I want to try all of these components, but I feel like the minute I start tasting, I've lost my ratios.
Right.
So, okay, I have a sense of the bourbon one now. Between the Cuvée and the sherry, which do you think is the stronger flavor? I think probably the Cuvée is the strongest flavor.
I think you're probably right. The thing that I always get out of the Cuvée that I don't see is I always get kind of a like horticulture note, you know, like the like, you know, green, like veggies and whatnot note that like, sort of a bright vegetal note, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. It's also a little bit like an herbal dark chocolate too. That could
I will
depend on
say
the
I
specific
really
expression.
like. Sorry,
So you really, really like what?
I really like the sherry cask.
And I believe we talked about this with Amanda, but I don't remember what the answer was. These sherry casks are high quality sherry casks from Spain.
Yes.
Not like American sherry, not like a transport cask or whatever, but or maybe like a transport cask, but like not sherry that's made for whiskey, like not the kind of sherry cask that's like that would never be a sherry product, but the kind of sherry cask where that was a sherry product for real that they would sell and bottle.
Yeah, it is not a dump off sherry.
Right. It's not a technically a sherry. It's a real bona fide good sherry. So high quality sherry casks. And that's the same deal with Cedar Ridge, by the way.
All right. So I have about 6 milliliters in this glass. Going with my sort of backbone, 2 milliliters of each, and then my probably very poor technique that would have Amanda shouting at me through the computer, adding what I think I want more of.
Yeah, I think that's the place to start, right? Like I would say starting with equal parts and then adding stuff to it is probably a good way to go. And then like try to recreate that with exact proportions in a minute.
Yeah. Let me find a notebook.
Okay. So the sherry cask component. Yeah, the notebook's a good idea. The sherry cask component, I'm getting like a little bit of Smarties, and it's coming across. So they have 3 kinds of sherry cask, if I remember correctly. They've got Fino, Amontillado. Is it? Oh man, it's now officially been long enough since I got my my American Single Malt Academy thing that I forget the actual exact types of sherry casks that they have. Hey, welcome to the Old Man's Irish Pub. So our good friend The Pawn has launched his own YouTube channel. So you should check that out
and
for
you
sure.
should go watch his videos. And you should subscribe and you should comment on his videos, telling him that he should drink more peated Irish whiskey.
More peated Irish whiskey. Also more American single malt too.
That
But
too.
we're biased. This is a really good sherry cask. Just, you know what? I mean, I don't need to, obviously it defeats the purpose of the blend, but like I should go out and buy a sherry cask Courage and Conviction is what I'm learning from this.
Yes.
The double cask reserve is very good, but it is a mix of bourbon and sherry. The point I was trying to get at is I wish I knew which type of sherry this was. It doesn't come off quite like a PX. It's probably a mix of all of the 3 types they have. All right. And last up.
I know that they use Fino.
Is it Fino, Oloroso, and PX? Probably.
I believe so.
That's the typical breakdown. All right, last thing to try is the cuvee. Got to know what ingredients we're working with. And you get to see all this dead air live while Phil and I do our process.
I apologize for that. So on my sort of backbone. Oh, and before I forget, because I did put it up on the screen, the Whiskey Shaman is in. Hello. And just got done talking to Amanda. That's exciting. She's one of my favorite people that we've had on the show in terms of just as like a communicator and educator about whiskey.
Yeah, we try not to play favorites on the show, but if you just look at who we keep having back, you can tell we have some favorites. And to be clear, that's Caitlin Bartlemay, Amanda Beckwith, and Anna Mathiakas. And also Murph. And oh yeah, we didn't really talk about content schedule because we don't have a schedule per se. But there are a few cool things coming up of soft commitments, real commitments, pre-recorded, scheduled for real. We're going to have all the bitter, non-alcoholic bitters is going to do a show with us the day before our dry week starts, which is April 5th. So the show is on April 4th. And on that note, the day that we end dry week, Caitlin Bartlemay is going to come into the Whiskey Lodge Discord and give the community a tour of the Clear Creek Distillery. So as usual, there's a link to the Whiskey Lodge in the description. If you want to go on that tour with us, you should join the lodge and you get to pop in on the tour when we do that. So that's going to be Friday, April 12th, unless I'm badly mistaken. Can you check me on that, Phil?
That is correct. Give me a moment. I don't have Discord on this computer. So
yeah, it's in the Whiskey Lodge announcements. I just remembered I can find it real easy. How did I come up with Friday, April 12th? That is not a day. It's Friday, April 11th. So
gotcha.
On Thursday, April 3rd is when we're doing the All the Bitter. We are going to be pre-recording an interview with Jared Himstead of Balcones on the 4th, I believe. But the date is not important because that's pre-recorded and it's going to be released after Diageo's PR clears it. So they are pre-screening the questions. It's not the way I prefer to run an interview, but I would much rather have the interview with Jared Himstead than not, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. There's Aaron Lee of Few Spirits. There's Murphy Quint of Cedar Ridge. We're actually recording a lot that week. Given this is the week after ACSA, a lot of people are still traveling or just needed to like do work when they got back from the convention. So this was not a good week to have people on the show. But everybody's available next week. So we're just going to try to cram in as much as we can. Keep an eye out on the Whiskey Lodge Discord. We're going to announce the YouTube community posts channel tab thing. We're going to post our content schedule there as it comes up. So we're not going to leave you too in the dark about who's going to be on the show. Becky Harris, Catoctin Creek. They have an American single malt now. They do small runs, limited edition kind of stuff. So yeah, there's a lot to talk about. Okay. This cuvee.
This is the first proper.
First, is it really the first and only?
The first proper. The rest are distilled from beers.
Oh, so no hops.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. Very good to know. That narrows down the list of things I'm going to go by the way, because they have 3 malt whiskeys on the website, and only the Finch and Hawk is that's the newness. That's the one we want to talk about. But also, Phil's a huge fan of Catoctin Creek. I like their products as well, although I have had I've had a lot less. I've had many fewer. That sounds wrong. I have not had as many expressions of Catoctin Creek as Phil has had. But what I've had has been really, really good. All right. So now that I've tasted all the components, this cuvee is not nearly as strong in its presence as I remember it being, which I think is a good thing, because what I remember from the Single Cask Nation, which I've actually kind of hidden now, it's in the back row behind me. The Single Cask Nation VDC is a cuvee cask, and it is very expressive. It is unusual, to say the least.
I'm moving on to. I've taken my blend of equal parts. I wasn't really happy with it. I think that um, the bourbon and the cuvee and the sherry all at equal level kind of winds up with, strangely, the bourbon cask and the oakier notes of the other two kind of overwhelming and being the dominant notes. So I'm going to try a little bit less of the bourbon cask and a little bit more of the cuvee cask and see how that goes. And by that,
Now, the
I
trick
mean
with using the rinse glass, sorry.
the trick is I'm, maintaining a base level of 2 milliliters of the bourbon cask and just adding a milliliter of the cuvee cask more. I've also switched to a second glass just because it seems like a good idea.
Yeah, I imagine most people who buy this kit are not going to only have this one glass at their disposal, but to the best of my ability, I'm going to try using just the one glass just to sort of test the kit as is.
That's fair. That is fair.
So I'm starting my base of 2 milliliters of each. And I think I'm like initially just going to nose it and kind of figure out where we are.
Did Chloe come by to say hello?
No. She is with my wife.
Oh, I thought I heard.
Oh no,
Dog
I'm
tags jingling.
tinkling in. No, that's going to sound bad out of context.
Ah,
I'm clinking on the glass with the dropper.
gotcha. Gotcha. I got
Rich,
excited because
I
I
agree
like
with
saying
you.
Chloe.
Yeah, she doesn't like me picking her up anymore. Like she's figured out that when I'm at this desk, if she comes bothering me, I'm going to pick her up. She doesn't like getting picked up. Rich, I agree. I really, really like Palo Cortado. Although I tend to reach for Oloroso sherry, especially like a well-aged 12, 15 year Oloroso sherry, more often because it's a really good it's whiskey adjacent in its complexity and flavor profile, and is a really good way to have like an evening of sipping at a lower alcohol percentage compared to whiskey. So if I like want to
I
have a sip of something while I'm watching a movie, but if I'm watching how much I'm drinking in a given day, Oloroso sherry is a really good pick.
I will say, as much as I enjoy what Pedro Jimenez sherry does to whiskey, Pedro Jimenez sherry is legitimately difficult to drink on its own. It is syrupy. It is saccharine. It is. I struggle to consume it on its own.
Equal parts smells real good.
It does. I just found that
Okay, I misunderstood. I misunderstood the question or the comment. Yeah, whiskey aged in Palo Cortado. I don't know if I've ever had that. Palo Cortado
I
feels like table sherry, not necessarily. What product have you had that's a Palo Cortado sherry aged? I'm gonna guess it's a Irish whiskey just because it's.
I know that there was a Wolfburn Palo Cortado cask aged um and an old Pulteney Palo Cortado. Um, but I can't think of any others. Ah, several Dunvilles. I
Okay,
have
so I really like the equal parts blend. Technically, that's not a thing they can do in this kit because it's 10 parts chosen between the 3 whiskeys, so it's impossible to have an equal blend. I have 6 parts in the glass that are 2 of each, and I need to choose 4 more parts. And what I said at the top is I think I'm going to want 60% bourbon. So I'm not sure I agree with that assessment at the moment, but I'm going to do it anyway just to test my assumption.
I found it to be a little less interesting. The equal parts blend. I would also like to note that one of the things that makes blending difficult is that you've got to balance, sort of, all 3 elements and then also allow it to marry a little bit. So like, swirling it around in the glass is doing as much as I can in limited time to really let the elements sort of gather together and marry.
So, like I said, I would like to see if this is doable with the one glass, but the process I really want to follow is make a few blends and have them to side by side. So, I think I'm gonna say I don't want to compromise my process here, and I would like to make a good recommendation in my subjective opinion, a good recommendation to the people who would buy this kit. Have a few glasses handy because it is very limiting to work with just one vessel. So for one thing, I have a glass of water that I'm using to rinse the to rinse the eyedropper. I want to have more than one blend so that I can side by side like what do I think is a good starting point. So like if I consider this 60% bourbon cask, 20% wine cask, 20% sherry cask as a sort of base of comparison, that's probably good. I'm going to also put the equal parts blend in a glass.
So I've reached the point of nosing and tasting the little bit more cuvee cask, and I think that's a definite improvement in my opinion. I don't know. I don't know that that will be the final. I mean, I know that it won't be the final pick, but it adds some like some like toasty and like bright fruity notes to it. I think I'm going to try. Let me look at my notebook real quick. I think what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to try. I think I'm going to try a little bit more sherry and a little bit more cuvee, even.
I think that's the way I'm leaning to be honest. The bourbon heavy blend is not bad, but I mean, you know me. So
Yeah.
the Daniel Whittington's whiskey vault review of our rum cask McCarthy's, his main refrain on that was, "We went for drama and we succeeded." And I do think that that is a fair and accurate assessment of my tastes. I like things to be dramatic. I like strong flavors.
Yeah. I will say, I quite enjoy the sherry cask on its own.
Oh, me too. That's why I said
And
I
I
got to go
feel
out and
like
buy one of these Courage and Conviction sherry casks.
I don't think it does as much in the blend though, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. Also, another thing I'm going to have to do at some point is compare. I've gotten a few of these. This seems to be trendy, these neat glasses. I think they're good because
Yeah.
with a very small quantity of liquid, you get a lot of surface area. So this is good for blending and this is good for
Mhm.
small sample sampling. But I am very used to how the Glencairn performs. Where like I know how close to get to it for the amount of surface area that I'm going to have in a half an ounce of whiskey. Or, geez, in this case, 4 milliliters of whiskey. Because
Yeah.
my dropper is reliably picking up 3/4 of a milliliter, not reliably picking up the 1 milliliter. So I'm just doing increments of 3/4 of a milliliter. As
See,
long as it's equal parts, right?
I'm just yeah.
No, let's see. I did should be 6 milliliters actually, because I did
I
two
just did what you
parts.
did and dropped my dropper. I will be
Yeah,
back
it's easy to
momentarily.
do. Yeah. So I've already done this blend of equal parts, but I did it in the neat glass, and now I've done it in the Glencairn, and I'm experiencing the whiskey differently in the Glencairn. And I'm gonna listen to that, I think, because I'm a lot more used to how the Glencairn performs. Obviously, when you take a sip and you take the glass out of the equation, it doesn't really matter anymore. But the nose is an important part of the whiskey. The
It
equal
is.
parts one is dramatic enough.
So you are going to laugh at this. It rolled under my bar.
Is it easy to
second
recover?
fine. Yes, I got it back. I just
Okay.
I looked down and couldn't see it and had a moment of oh no, I vaporized it by dropping it.
I did the same. I mean, because it is glass and it's dark down there under the chair, and
Yeah.
the wheels are black, it's easy to not notice this when it's, on the floor next to your black wheels. All right, so I tried adding the other 4 parts as bourbon. I'm gonna try adding the other 4 parts as an equal mix of the cuvee and the sherry. I should do this more for the camera. You are making the right choice there. So
Well, it also backlit by my monitor means that I can see what I'm doing just a little bit better. Because there we go. And then what I'm doing is I'm overfilling it and letting out until I'm back down to 1 milliliter. So the blend that I'm currently working on putting together is 2 milliliters bourbon, 3 milliliters sherry cask, and 4 milliliters cuvee cask. And I'm going to see how that is, and then adjust from there. Because I think that that'll probably be pretty close to the ticket. I'm also going to move this away from my mic a little bit because that's driving me nuts. I can't imagine the audience enjoys it.
what the jingling?
That, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying myself. I know that this is a weird activity to stream, but I'm having a lot of fun.
I agree. Is this good content? No idea. Can we edit this into good content? Probably.
I mean, I think this has also turned out to be a little more involved than we anticipated. I mean, no, that's not true. I thought this was going to be involved and finicky.
Oh yeah. I mean, in terms of time, like we're gonna have to say, at some point, we're gonna say, we'll have to take the rest of this offline. This is a very involved process, definitely. I think this is like take a beat, come back next week, like share what we came up with. But at least you can see. I don't know that we can vouch for this process working particularly well for either of us because we haven't finished yet, but you can see what this process is like. And if messing around with lab equipment and glasses of whiskey and figuring out what you like is a thing that you want to do, again, the kit is $30. Yeah, blending experience at JJ Corey, right?
Ooh.
Doing this in
like
person. So okay. Yeah, go ahead.
I would like to say that for $30, even if you don't intend on buying the full bottle of your blend, for $30, and you can get more 50 milliliter bottles of each of these for $30. I think this is well worth the money. Full stop. Like I'm having a lot of fun.
Yeah. So let's say that let's say that the minis, right? Let's say the glass is $10. It might even be more than that for the branded neat glass, right? The glass by itself, call it $10, $12, $15 worth of value. The minis, you could probably buy the 50 milliliter mini for, I don't know, somewhere between $5 and $8. Really, when you think about it, I mean, like, is it the most cost-effective way to get a volume of whiskey? No. But if you look at what these things cost and the experience that you're getting from this, because it's not just, oh, I bought some minis and I blended them together. At the end of the day, you get to tell them what you want, and they're going to give you a full bottle, professionally blended, of the whiskey spec that you blended. Right? It's your creation, and I'm sure that in-person blending experiences are really cool, and I would love to do that too. But what I find is you go to a distillery and you're in that environment, and you're all hyped up on the experience. There's people around you that are super excited. And at that point, once they've got you with the story and the experience, there's very little that is going to convince you that that's bad whiskey at that point. It's good for that distillery and that the distillery experience. They're going to sell you whiskey. That's the goal. It's not necessarily good for knowing, is this really the flavor profile I want, or am I being affected by the... Yeah, good question, Rich. We'll get that. I'm sorry, I got distracted. We'll get you that information. If you're doing an experience like this in your own home, you get to remove the distillery experience and the pressure of being around people, and you get to really focus on the sensory experience of figuring out exactly what it is that you want out of your whiskey. And hopefully the end result of that is a whiskey that you're happier with than you otherwise would be. Did you nail it? That looks like a nailed it face.
So 2 milliliters of the bourbon, 3 of sherry, 4 of cuvee. On the nose, just fantastic. Mm. On the palate,
so
that
2, 3, 4 is not quite 10. 2, 3, 4 is 9, I think.
No, I think yeah, I think that's 9. I think just a little bit more of each of the cuvee and the sherry to really amp them up. But I think that like, say, a half milliliter of each, which would bring it up to 10 milliliters. I think that might be it, because this is good.
Yeah. So looking at the card again, and this makes a lot of sense. They want you to blend a 50 milliliter sample and use that. You don't necessarily have to do it this way, but this is the guidance that they're giving. Each 10% component is 5 milliliters in the blend. So if you want a 20% bourbon, 20% cuvee, 60% sherry, this is the example. You do 10 milliliters, 10 milliliters, 30 milliliters. So you're using the majority of these bottles to sort of do a final check on your blend. And there's enough left that you can still kind of push it one way or another at that point. But once you've done a blend of the majority of the liquid of any one of these components, you're going to be hard pressed to move from that point very much. So I would start smaller for sure. I mean, like, we're doing fractions of milliliters here, or just like we're doing like a 10 milliliter blend or something like that to sort of get started and figure out, just get oriented. Yeah. So, okay, to answer Rich's question, where do you get this? Give me a moment. I'm going to pull that up.
So what this is the Virginia Distillery Company Courage and Conviction, the Draftsmen kit. This is the insert. I put the box aside, and it's currently out of reach. But this is a handy set that is meant to sort of allow you to blend your own custom Courage and Conviction bottling. It's I believe roughly $30. I don't think it will let you post a link in the YouTube comments, but if you go to the lodge, we will definitely share a link to it there because genuinely this is a lot of fun. If you are in the US, if you're in a state that Virginia Distillery Company can ship this to you, I recommend it. I'm having a blast. I think that it is a really cool thing to do. Whether or not you decide to buy the full bottle yourself or not. I think I definitely am.
Yep. So I am presenting. So I just put a link in the live chat. I'll put it in the description of the video as well, and I'll put it in the Whiskey Lodge. So the courageandconviction.com/pages/the Draftsmen, which is in the projection and is now in the comments and is on the screen. And there's a lot of ways to find this, or you just Google Courage and Conviction, the Draftsman. And then you can see in the middle, there's a button that says order tasting kit. That takes you to this page, which is I was mistaken. It's $25 and then add tax and shipping. So this is the kit with the glass and the 3 50 milliliter sample bottles and the dropper and the cards with all the information, the tasting notes, the how to do this thing. And then when you're done, you scroll down. There's another listing in the store, Courage and Conviction, the Draftsman, as opposed to the Draftsman blending kit, the Draftsman. And so when you go to that link, that takes you here. And so then you get to choose the name for the sticker. So you get like drafted by you. And I guess Livingston, Virginia is probably on all of them because that's where Virginia Distillery Company is. And then you choose your increments of 10% of the bourbon cask, the sherry cask, and the cuvee cask, Courage and Conviction components that you put into your blend. And then you get to order your, so it's different shipping to, and price is different in Virginia and outside Virginia. So for me, apparently, well, shipping will be different, but the price is actually the same. So it's $70, $69.99 to order your custom blend. And as I was saying earlier, I'm bad at doing the math live, but considering that there are 10 parts of your blend between the 3 components. Let's hold up 3 fingers between the 3 components. So there's enough different variations of this product that there's no way this is going to be grab it off the shelf when you order. They are legitimately going to have to custom blend you this product. So you know that it's freshly made just for you. Or maybe if multiple people order the exact same thing within a short period of time, they'll blend a few bottles worth. But it's going to be custom blended to order. And by the way, none of this is sponsored. We like VDC. We think this is an incredible experience to be able to do this tasting at home, do your own blend at home, and be able to order it. We bought this our own, there's just all the usual disclaimers. This is not sponsored. This is because we love this idea. But we should get like a referral code or something.
I mean, maybe what we ought to do is get Amanda to review our blends.
Oh, that would be fun. That's a really good idea. You're like, hey Amanda, do you wanna hang on to a bottle or a sample of the thing that you blended for us and roast our blends? So yeah, okay. So that's how this works. Like you, Phil, I am leaning towards less bourbon, middle of the road sherry, and more cuvee.
Yeah.
So I think I may not settle on this exactly, but I think I'm gonna close out today's thing by building a blend of, let's see, I've got 2 parts bourbon, 2 parts cuvee, 2 parts sherry in that glass. So that's the equal mix one. I'm gonna do 2, 3, 5. Where the cuvee is the 50% of the blend.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna try that and see how I like it.
You know what's funny? that's next on my to try list.
You know what would be funny? I would love if there's 2 kits ordered. Awesome. You should have waited until we had a referral code. Just kidding. Honestly, 2 kits is a good idea because then you get 100 milliliters of each to work with. You get 2 glasses, and if you're doing this with a partner, you can share the source whiskey between your 2 blends.
Mm-hmm. I'll tell you what. Right now, I'm really tempted to order another set of 50 milliliter bottles, just because.
Can you do that without the rest of the kit?
Aw, Rich, you've got more than one friend.
Yeah, I count 2 on screen right now.
Let me just go to. This is actually strangely going to be easier to do on my phone.
And then I might flip it around. I might do the 2, 3, and 5, but put the sherry as the largest component just to see. But for right now, I feel like making the cuvee the largest component feels right.
I mean, it's what has been, to me, adding all the elements of this blend that I've enjoyed. I mean, that's not true. It's what's been adding the notes that really elevate the blend, I think. You can order a Courage and Conviction 50 milliliter mix pack that has the flagship, the bourbon cask, the sherry cask, and the cuvee cask.
Is that all 50 milliliter samples?
Yes. And it is $27.99. You can also get a gift pack that has 750 of the Courage and Conviction and 50 milliliters each of, sorry, the flagship, 750 of the flagship and 50 milliliter bottles of the bourbon sherry cask and cuvee cask. But yeah, I'm going to try both. So there are 2 more that I'm going to try. Not tonight, obviously, because we've got to wrap this up. But imminently, the ones that I want to try are the 50% cuvee cask and the and a blend that is 20-40-40, just to see how that is. And I think then after that, I will definitely try the 20-40-50.
$20, $40, $50.
No,
Okay.
20-30-50. Sorry, my brain was
Okay.
not running. 2, 3, and 5 milliliters.
Okay, so the samples I have are 60% bourbon, 20%, 20%. I have the equal parts. And then I have the 20% bourbon, 30% sherry, 50% cuvee. So these are the three. This is a good place. I mean, like, I don't know that I'm going to like settle on. Okay. So where did I hear it recently? I think it was on One Nation Under Whiskey. The idea that you'll have a whiskey blend that's like good enough, like you like it.
Mhm.
It's you know, it's this was talking about triangle tests also. We should do a thing explaining what a triangle test is at some point, but not this episode. I've got a triangle
Yes.
test that I've had sitting back there for 5 months or something that I haven't had a chance to do because I keep having. I'm not going to pick up my camera right now, but there are literally, I don't know, I'm going to say 50 samples on my desk. Probably more. This is all stuff I need to get to. And
Yeah.
at some point I'm going to
Yeah.
have to say I can't get to all of these, and I need to start just saying I'll come back to it later, maybe when something feels like the right comparison. But like the idea is to do review notes for all of these, which
Mhm.
I'm so far behind. Anyway, there's a triangle test episode to do maybe at some point. We're gonna have Anna Montiakis back to talk about that triangle test that it is that she sent me that I need to do, which is the difference between the cold filtered and the non-cold filtered product from Westward. Can I detect the difference? But besides that, when you do a triangle test, you're not just trying to pick the odd man out. You're also trying to say which of the, like, whether it's A or B, like, can you tell the difference? So there's two that are the same and there's one that are different. You don't know which is which. Can you pick out the one that's different? And then can you say which one you like better? And you might say, hey, they're different, but I like them the same. And you just sort of keep doing that. Like, can you tell the difference? Is it getting better? At some point, you reach the peak of what your ingredients can do for you. In this case, it's the 3 courage and conviction styles that we have to work with, but it might be the different barrels in your barrel house or whatever. And I've seen the blenders in action at Balcones. There's so many samples and a grid of trying things in different components of blends, and like there's so much that goes into it. We amateurs at blending are trying just to do this with 3 different samples and taking a real long time to do it. There's a more efficient way to do this for sure, especially at a professional scale with calibrated pipettes that will get you exactly what you want. And you could even do the thing where you set up a multi-dimensional, like, we're going to do row 1 has 10% bourbon and row 2 has 20% bourbon and row 3 has 30% and so on. And then put do all the combinations with the sherry and the cuvee and figure out which one of these is actually the absolute best. But even if you could theoretically do that, there's so many samples, you're just going to completely destroy your palate trying to do that. And the subtlety between them you're not going to be able to pick out the differences necessarily. So picking sort of the extremes, like the first thing I did here, explaining my process, the first thing I did here was I tasted each of the 3 components separately to just get an idea of what it is that I'm working with. Blend them all together in equal parts and see what that does. And then try a few things. So I said, I want way more bourbon. And I thought I would like that, but I actually don't like that as much. And I said, okay, well, I want way more cuvee. And that's what I'm trying now. And I might not like that either. We'll see. I'm letting it marry at the moment. Because like, I think it's getting close enough to what I want. I think that it's worth like letting this blend and marry and giving it a fair chance while I soliloquy for a little bit. And I do have all three of these things to compare with each other. And between these three, between the equal parts and the heavy on the bourbon and the heavy on the cuvee, I should be able to say, and there's one more thing I could go heavy on the sherry and just see how that does. And then just, and each sample will impact what you have following is exactly right. So that's one reason for the triangle test. That's a reason to come back on a different day and do it again. Like, I did not come into this today expecting to nail this down in one go, right? I'm going to come up with what I think is good and then come back and do it again in a different order on another day. Maybe a third day, but at some point it's diminishing returns and I just want to lock it in and go. Because so far, none of these have been bad. This is a matter of finding the better good, you know?
Yeah, this is one of those scenarios where you have all good components and you're not going to make something bad with it because it's hard to take a bunch of good things and make something bad out of it. Just saying.
It can happen. Whiskey blending does weird things sometimes. But I have to imagine that this was very carefully thought through by the Courage and Conviction marketing team of like, let's make sure we don't give customers something where they could potentially produce something objectively bad.
Yeah.
Like how you achieve that, I don't know. But I imagine that some thought went into that for sure. Certainly before they opened it up to anyone who wants to blend their own, right? At some like to some degree, yes, they could say you blended this, you're responsible for this. And also, if any of the intermediate things that you came up with were not good, that's the whole point. Don't order that. But on the other hand, speaking as a software engineer who gives products to customers sometimes, you know, in order to exist as a company, you have to sell things, right? You have to have customers. You can always say, okay, well, the customer used it wrong. It's their fault. But that is a bad customer experience. You don't ever want your customer to have a bad experience. So you want to make sure anything they could possibly do that is within the bounds of the rules that you presented to them is something that is not bad. And I imagine a whiskey company is thinking the exact same way about something they're putting in the hands of their customers and calling an experience, right? Anybody could buy a bottle of Ardbeg and a bottle of Cedar Ridge and mix them together. And that actually sounds good. Like I imagine you could come up with a combination of whiskeys that like, let's say I'm just looking around and trying to come up with something.
And Port Charlotte and Yellowstone single malt. Both good whiskeys.
I could see that not being great. I was looking at Floki and in a single line of vision, just pick two random bottles. I'm looking at Floki and Lost Lantern. Floki is the Icelandic sheepdung smoked malt, and then Lost Lantern Mountain Meadow, which is the hopped single malt from St. George. And I imagine a blend of those whiskeys would not go well.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's probably the worst blend I can imagine. Just looking at what's around me. And so anybody can go out and buy any whiskey that they want and blend it together and say, ew, this is disgusting. But they have nobody to blame because those are two different companies and you did that to yourself. But when a company, Virginia Distillery Company, gives you a kit and says, blend these together in whatever way you want and tell us what you came up with, you would want to make sure that these things are all compatible with each other in a way that's not going to come up with something objectively bad.
I just had a sudden, like, lightning rod moment. Based on what people send in and what they get, Virginia Distillery Company can make a chart of people's whiskey preferences. Granted, on the limited scope of their product, but like that's got to be kind of cool from a purely statistical standpoint. You know what I mean?
Oh, I just got I thought this was related to the podcast, but I just got a message from a friend. Apparently at trivia, the trivia theme is sip happens and seems to be alcohol related. Well, I guess I'm not at trivia.
Oh. You doing trivia?
We do trivia on Thursdays. Sometimes it's like every other week, but I always forget which weeks it is because it's like the first and third Thursdays of the month, and a podcast. It's hard to do. It's hard to get it right in advance.
Well, we are at 2 hours and 20 minutes and 50 seconds, so might as well call it a day. You can go do trivia.
No. I'm not going to make it. It's 45 minutes away.
Oh, never mind then.
Yeah, but it is time to wrap up this podcast.
And
I have to say though,
Donald,
I was right. I like the heavy on the cuvee much better than the equal parts or the heavy on the bourbon.
Mm-hmm. It's funny that I skipped a step and we arrived at that conclusion at about the same time.
So the product we get in the end is going to be called the Draftsmen. But it feels like we're making a triple cask reserve, you know?
Yeah. It's literally our own blend of the flagship, because the flagship is a blend of those three.
Mm-hmm. We just don't know what the percentages are.
Right.
We could ask. I wonder how likely we are to get an answer to that, because it's probably not even the even 10% percentages, no. and it probably varies over time. But just thinking arbitrage now for a second. So so you pay the 30. I don't know if you even need to buy the kit, actually. I would hope that you do. But you could just blind guess at the proportions that you want and ask for them to blend the bottle for you, and then you get it. So speaking in terms of arbitrage, the Draftsman blend, the custom blend, is $70. I gotta go find the store. Why did I have to start over? Okay, Courage and Conviction, Signature Malt, $65.99. Double cask reserve, $74.99. The bourbon cask is $79.99, and the cuvee and the sherry. So those are the most expensive, the singular casks.
Mm-hmm.
So just thinking in terms of arbitrage, and of course there's different sherry cask components. There may be different cuvee cask components. Like there's more that goes into this. So I'm not saying this is a cheat code. I'm saying like this is along the lines of like, if you want to make poor man's Pappy, but it's poor man's Courage and Conviction. You know, you could say, I'm going to order the $70 Draftsman and I want it to be 100% cuvee cask, and I'm going to pay $70 for it instead of $80 for it. Arbitrage? Except I'm nearly 100% certain you're not going to get as refined of a product if you do that.
No. The single cask Courage and Conviction line, the bourbon, Pedro Jimenez, and cuvee cask are on sale. Unfortunately, the Oloroso is sold out. Sorry, I had it up on my phone, so I was looking at it.
VHW Brewers Batch, that's a new product to me. Now is the bad. Now we're just shopping. We're just shopping live on stream.
We've gotten distracted. I
Yeah.
believe
No, it's time.
that
It's time to wrap up.
is- Yes. It is from the old VHW line, though.
Okay. Oh, okay. Got it. Okay. Well, which one of these
I think
glasses
it's
is my
time
the
to
Whiskey
go
Lodge
ahead and
glass?
sign off.
Yes, absolutely. Just gotta. Well, we used to say blend everything together and then comment on it, but that's the whole task today, is blending the things together. So let's revert to grab your favorite. For me, so far, it's this 20, 30, 50 heavy on the cuvee.
I emptied that glass, so I've got the
Oh, well, geez, you
quintessential single cask.
just totally pivoted on me, off topic entirely.
Oh, I
Although
finished my glass though, so
yeah, no, that's fine. That's
I
fine.
don't have anything.
It makes sense. Yeah. Oh man, I really like this. The longer I'm sitting with this, the more I like it. I'm definitely gonna have to use this as my benchmark to come back to on the next day.
Mhm.
It's not going to be tomorrow, but like the next time I try this. And this is my baseline comparison now. It's way more compelling than the other two. So yeah, for sure. Okay, so thanks for bearing with us as we unpacked my ACSA adventure, and as we got into this blending experiment here. If you like what we do, like, subscribe, tell your friends. If you like what Virginia Distillery Company is doing, this is not an ad. Go try this thing. This is very cool. This is one of the coolest whiskey experiences you can have at home, curated by a company as opposed to curated by you and a group of friends. Very cool stuff. Oh, we shan't forget. If you want to order Glencairns that have the Single Malt Frontier Whiskey Lodge McCarthy's single cask pick logo on it, that was a mouthful. If you want to order, what if you don't have any friends? John, Mr. John Hughes. We have no room for that here. But hey, you know what? To answer the question, okay, that was mean. I'm sure there are some people who feel that way. I don't think it's you, John. But it turns out the Draftsmen blending kit is a great way to do a curated whiskey experience with nobody else's input. Although if you do have other people who order this kit, this was a lot of fun.
It was.
Personally, let us know in the comments what you like in terms of. Don't you introduce yourself on your podcast? Do I just have that completely wrong? I hope I'm not doxing you. Was it the Mister? It was the Mister, wasn't it? Okay, so let us know in the comments if you like this sort of thing where Phil and I do the tasting and talking and do some activity that doesn't involve a guest. If you like this, let us know. We can do more of it. If you would rather us stick to interviewing producers because we have nothing constructive to say, tell us that too. It was the Mister part. That was the part that put him over the edge.
Yeah, that's the one that you knew you were in trouble when a teacher referred to you as Mr. Last Name.
Right. Especially once you throw the middle name, the first name in there as the middle name, Mr. So-and-so. Courage and Conviction Cuvée is a monster, and I love it, says John. Yeah. The only example I have of that is the Single Cask Nation, and now this little sample here. And yeah, it gives you a lot to think about. As I've said before, that Double Cask Reserve, it's a light flavor profile, but it's so complex and interesting that whenever I stick that in a glass, I can't help but it demands my full attention. I have to put it on the other side of the room, because if it's anywhere near me, I'm going to just keep sticking my nose in it. So it's a monster in the sense of, like, once you've thought about the monster under the bed, you can't stop thinking about the monster under the bed. It's kind of like that. Monster jokes, and it's not even October. It's almost as far from October as it could be. Okay, this has gone on long enough, but let's get back on this. If you want our merch, if you want these Glencairns, we've got custom branded barrel pick sticker Glencairns and the Whiskey Lodge Glencairns, if you're a member of the Whiskey Lodge, or if you just like the way this logo looks. You can order both of those. There's a survey link in the comments or in the description, so you can get that. Contact us if you're interested in Phil's barrel stave pens. I've been writing my notes with this today. This is a Wild Turkey blank, but he also has McCarthy's staves, and I can't wait to get my hands on one of those. So I don't know about you. What else do we have merch-wise?
We talked about doing stickers at some point, but I don't think we ever actually got around to that.
Yeah, in terms of merch we actually have right now. We don't get any money from the barrel pick, but the barrel pick is about 2 cases left before it's sold out, and we anticipate it's going to be available for about another month. The Whiskey Vault has reviewed this, and we've been getting organic community reviews of this whiskey. So many people are saying this is one of the best whiskeys they've ever tried. Full disclosure, Daniel Whittington did not particularly like it in terms of his own preferences, but he did go on to say, no flaws, dramatic, doing everything you expect a single cask pick to do, and that he thinks a lot of other people will really, really enjoy it. Or he may have even said love it. So, you know, when you go for dramatic, sometimes you get polarizing. I don't think it's particularly polarizing any more than just a peated whiskey. A heavily peated whiskey in general is polarizing. But that's my personal opinion. And, you know, it is what it is. You put these things out into the world, and you just can't be upset when you can't be upset with any of the feedback you get, right? All feedback is good feedback. But anyway, we don't make any money from that barrel pick. We did that barrel pick because we love McCarthy's. And if you love McCarthy's, you should support them by buying that barrel pick. It does technically support us by getting our brand name out farther into the world. If you like it, you talk about it, and you talk about where it came from. So that's the only way that it benefits us. So if you want some whiskey and to give us some free advertising, that's a way to do it. Merch-wise, nothing else. Yes?
I would like to say, while you are on the Hood River Distillers website, purchasing our beautiful, wonderful, best whiskey of 2024 single barrel pick, you should also buy a bottle of their standard McCarthy's, as well as a bottle of Old Delicious and various other Hood River Distiller products. Old Delicious is a apple brandy aged in an ex-bourbon barrel. It is fantastic stuff, and it certainly doesn't get enough love.
Yep. I believe they're still selling 15-year-old apple brandy. They may have sold out by now, but if they do still have it, you should look into that. That's extremely good. As an evergreen product, and considering that they make Douglas Fir, they have an actual evergreen product, the Douglas Fir brandy. But in terms of a product they always have that I think is delicious, the pear brandy, made from actual Bartlett pears. And that's the Douglas Fir brandy that Phil has there. Let me zoom in a little bit. So that's the Douglas Fir brandy. Yep. That's made from grape brandy and infused with Douglas Fir spruce tips. Yeah. I mean, hey, just in general, like, go watch our interviews with Caitlin Bartlemay. Learn about all these things. But yes, as long as you're buying our bottle of whiskey, keep in mind it's a $20 flat rate shipping for up to 6 bottles of anything you want from their store. I recommend the aged apple brandies, the pear brandy, and the Slivovitz. Those are my picks. So yeah, cool. That's support McCarthy's. Now, one other thing while we're talking about barrel picks, we have done an informal survey of the Whiskey Lodge, and we're thinking about our next barrel pick. We have not made any decisions yet, but there are 3 or 4 distilleries that I've talked to about doing a barrel pick. Let's say I say 4. There are 3 distilleries I've talked to about doing a barrel pick. One of which I've picked out a very solid candidate barrel and is being held for me in case when it's appropriately aged if I want it. It's not sold to me yet, but it's earmarked for me. Whether that's our next barrel pick or barrel pick after that, I think we're doing that one. I'm not gonna reveal what that is because I'm not sure if I'm allowed to. I have talked to Westward. I've talked to Miles Monroe at Westward about doing a barrel pick. We haven't started the process of that yet, but I have walked around the barrel house with him and noted some interesting cask types. So the wheels are turning, if not yet the process is actually started. And then there's one more that I think would just be an extremely agreeable single cask to do. We love their single casks. I would love to do a quintessential single cask pick. That would be really cool. And I think would go over very well with a mixed audience of Scotch and bourbon and American single malt lovers like we have in the Whiskey Lodge. So
would we call it the Doug Essential?
No. I'm just going to shut that down right now. The quintessential is too good. And also, I can't... I'm not that self-absorbed, guys. Come on. No. It's not about me. It's about the product. I want to help people get access to things which are remarkable whiskey. Perhaps sometimes polarizing, but at least you'll say something. So, yeah. So that's enough of all of the things. It is really well past time for us to get out of here. So, with all that said, Phil, it's been great hanging out with you. Until next time, we'll see you in the lodge. Night, everybody.
Sláinte.